This right here is Donald Trump with a baseball bat next to the DA, the district attorney, which helped make the decision to go forward with Donald Trump's indictment. He's holding a baseball bat as if to bash in the head of Alvin Bragg. So I need to talk to you guys about this. So we've been talking about Trump a lot, so I don't want to get too engrossed in the Trump world, but this is too big of a story for me to ignore it. So Donald Trump was arrested yesterday, and the fallout from it has been absolutely spectacular. I've been having a blast. It is unbelievably surreal to see President Trump, former President Trump that is, being led into courtrooms like this, being sat down like this, having courtroom drawings and illustrations. This is surreal. None of us ever thought this day would actually come. I mean, we don't know if he's going to be found guilty on anything yet, but I don't think anybody ever really thought it would get this far. I'm sure there was always some holdouts in the resist lib community, you know, like Wolverines, gorillas in the mountains, ready to arrest Trump at a moment's notice. But I don't think any of us actually thought he would get arrested. And it's not that he didn't commit any crimes. I think he's committed multiple crimes. I think him trying to call Brad Raffensperger and trying to intimidate him into changing the votes to make him win the election, that was a crime. That's just one example. And of course, the Stormy Daniels payoff and the cover-up of it, of putting it under business expenses and not writing it up as a campaign expense, which is what might move it into a felony charges, which we'll talk about in a second. That is a crime. But just because somebody commits a crime does not necessarily mean that they're going to be brought before a judge or that they're going to actually move forward with pressing charges and indict the person. There's a lot of rich, powerful people who commit crime. Oh, I'm getting a call from Maryland. I'm sure it's an important call. Oh, no, it's a spam call. I'll immediately reject it. Thank you, Maryland. There are a lot of very influential, rich, and powerful people who commit crimes all the time and get away with it time and time again. You see Jeffrey Epstein, right? Just because they finally got him, it's not because, he just committed the crime, or finally we have a case. A lot of it is they're rich and powerful. They can pay powerful lawyers.
Flemmy gifted 5 Tier 1 subscriptions. This could have been your random sub. Do you feel the FOMO?
Hey, look at that. See, if you were in site chat right now, for all you guys, if you guys were in site chat right now, you could have benefited from one of these fantastic Tier 1 subs that Bright, Sciensta, Surly Dev, Black Blade Smith, and Suspicious Saturate got right there. That could have been you. But instead, you were sleepy, you were lazy, and you were in gutter chat, you know? And now you don't. Now that's not you. Think about that, okay? Business mind. Think about this like an investor. Think about this like, don't think of this like white flight, okay? Think about this like manifest death. Okay, no, that doesn't work. That has even worse connotation. Think about this like you're an Israeli. No, okay, that's not good either. Say you're a white South. Okay, never mind. Not white South African. Okay, you're a migrant, and you're going to better pastures. You're going to better pastures in site chat. Just think about it. You're going to better pastures in site chat. Just consider that. Okay, so when you look at people like Jeffrey Epstein or any of the other guys who did crimes time and time again, and it took a million different instances to have the book thrown at them. The reason they have the book thrown at them isn't because they finally committed a crime or they even finally slipped up. It was that the evidence became so overwhelming, or there were so many different cases that eventually they got hooked on something. For Trump, it seems to be there were so many cases that he finally got hooked on something. That seems to be the case. Man. Radical AC, thank you so much for the primer, being sub for 12 months. Float with us in gutter chat. We all float down here. Yes, you do. Anyway, that seems to be the case here. So let me lay out the case for you if you guys are interested. Well, Donald Trump was running for president in 2016. He was possibly worried. We don't know intent 100%, but there was a concern about Stormy Daniels, an adult film actress who had had relations with him in the year 2006 and had an affair with him. And in going up to the 2016 election, since he's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party, which is the quote unquote family values party, he was a little concerned about it, leaking into the press that the so-called family values candidate endorsed by all the evangelicals had had an affair with an adult film actress while married to his current wife. Ooh, that's not a good, while married, oh, that's not a good look. That's not a good look at all. So what is Donald Trump going to do? How does he deal with this? Well, he decides that he's going to pay her off. And so he finds the number $130,000 to be a sufficient amount of money to pay her off. So he sends his fixer to go out and pay her $130,000. After he goes to her, they do the agreement, gives her $130,000. That fixer comes back to him, and he then reimburses that fixer with $130,000 out of the Trump organization's wallet. A business, a private business. And then they marked that expense as just a business expense. So that is a mislabeling of what he did. We can always talk about the morality of something he still hasn't admitted to, by the way, of the affair in 2006. That, of course, it's bad to cheat on your significant other. Wow, big surprise. Not that he has broken any ground there as president of the United States. He was certainly not the first president to cheat on a significant other. He does still deny it, though. I do want to throw that out there. There's $130,000. We have the record of the $130,000 being paid to Stormy Daniels, yet he still denies it. So why did he give him the $130,000 if it wasn't to cover up the affair? What's the other reason? He has yet to elaborate. So anyway, that was a mislabeling of those funds and how they were used. And mislabeling business expenses is actually a misdemeanor. It's a crime, but it's not a felony. So already he's in criminal territory. Where the felony comes in is that if this money was given to Stormy Daniels in order to impact the results of the 2016 election, then it could be considered a campaign expense. And so if it was not labeled a campaign expense, definitely when we're talking about $130,000, that's an extensive campaign expense, that's also illegal. And so if you misfile business forms alone, that's a misdemeanor. But if you misfile business forms in an attempt to commit another criminal act, then it's a felony. It's no longer class 2, it's class 1. Now it's a felony. Now we're talking about serious charges and prison time. And Trump has 34 counts against him, totaling up in a maximum total of 136 years in prison. Now that number sounds scary, but it's not that scary. Number one, because it would be funny if he got 136 years in prison. But number two, he would most likely end up getting 4 years because all of these charges are like same variations of basically the same charge. And so it seems to be expected that the worst he could probably get is 4 years, even though at the end of the day, the idea of Donald Trump getting any time or any imprisonment for this crime almost feels laughable, because imprisoning a former president, while that isn't necessarily wrong and it should be done on certain occasions, I won't believe it till I see it, I guess is the expression. I could imagine him being fined heavily. I could imagine some other punishment, but him going to prison is just so unlikely. But the real time we're looking at is 4 years, not 136 that some people are trying, like screaming at the top of their lungs, 136 years in prison. It's actually 4 years. And so that is the current situation that Donald Trump finds himself in. So if nobody has explained to you the Stormy Daniels situation, I'm happy I can be the first to explain to you exactly why Trump's in the trouble he's in. So when he talks about all these different legal cases that he's in, this is the narrative that Trump has tried to counter this with, is that this is a witch hunt by Alvin Bragg, a politically motivated, they'll usually mention that Alvin Bragg was backed by Soros, a Soros-backed candidate going to witch hunt Donald Trump. Trump is, all these cases are brought against Trump. Trump is just being sought at. They're all going after him. I think there's 4 different cases going against Trump right now. Honestly, I kind of just view it that this is the first one that hooked him. I don't think this is a big political scheme just to bully the former president of the United States. I've yet to see sufficient evidence provided that these are trumped up charges. I purposely used that word, by the way. Trumped up charges. Until I see that, I can't believe anything else unless you want me to just assume the intent of Alvin Bragg and also assume the intent of everybody else that voted to go forward with these legal proceedings after hearing the testimony of people involved with Donald Trump in the committal of this crime, specifically the fixer who has now kind of flipped on Trump and gave testimony to the people before the people who were making the decision whether to go forward or not forward with these charges. And after that testimony, they decided to go forward with the charges. I am very interested in what the testimony of the fixer that set up this whole operation in the first place, what exactly that testimony was, and if it's enough to basically bring Trump down on these charges. But Donald Trump's reaction to all this is, of course, call it a witch hunt. Call it a witch hunt, like every single other investigation into him, like every impeachment, like everything. Anytime he feels any of the repercussions of his own actions, it's a witch hunt. And he has started to try to post through it. I don't know if you guys know what posting through it means, but posting through it is something somebody does when they're either getting dragged on Twitter or they're going through a lot where they're just posting through the pain, right? Let's say I make a tweet like cats suck. Terrible take. I'm getting ratioed. And so what I do is I post like 10, 16, 17, 18 times out of not only anger and frustration, but out of an attempt to kind of just dig myself out of the position while not moving. That's posting through it. That is what Trump is doing right now. He's posting through it. Let's just go through some of the messages that Donald Trump has posted, because he was posting through it while he was traveling to New York City to be indicted, to be arrested, to turn himself in. Also, two things I need to note here. Number one, we're not going to get a mugshot, and we didn't get cuffs on Donald Trump. We have been denied these things. It's a major injustice, and I believe the people who denied us these things should be tarred and feathered in public. This is something the American people deserve. The second thing I want to note here is that the coverage of mainstream news companies on this has been like it's the Super Bowl. I mean, they are covering every single nook and cranny of the story. I was looking, and I think CNN, or was MSNBC, one of the major news sites, had a camera set up outside the courthouse that just showed people coming in and outside of the courthouse. That was it. Just hoping to get a peek at somebody like opening the door and like peeking through with their eyeball and then closing it again. There were more, and in many instances, there were more journalists, like 3, 4, 5 to 1 journalists. There were more journalists than there were Trump supporters or counter protesters in many of these instances, because the press were having a field day with this. I saw drone or helicopter footage of Trump's plane taking off from Mar-a-Lago, then landing in New York, before they then filmed the entire process of him driving to the office where he had to submit himself for arrest. The entire process was filmed. They might as well have just had somebody in the plane with Trump vlogging the entire thing, live streaming it to Kick. Wouldn't be Twitch, would probably be Kick, let's be for real. Just terrible coverage. Like I understand the need that a lot of news companies feel that they have for 24/7 news coverage, but it was unironically just fucking ridiculous. Like, we did not need all of that coverage. It's part of the reason why I kind of had some hesitation to cover the story today, as I felt like you guys must be kind of like pooped with the story, right? You guys must be kind of sick of the story by now because of how much coverage the news media has given this, while also adding very little substance. Anyway, let's continue. Let's read some of the posting through it he did. Heading to Lower Manhattan, the courthouse. Thank you for the clarification. Seems so surreal. Wow, they're going to, all caps, arrest me. Can't believe this is happening in America. MAGA. He just like put it at the end like it was Kobe, like he was doing like a free throw from the middle of the court. My goodness, just threw that at the end there. Just had to add MAGA. He was signing off the movement. Do we have some other ones? There has to be other ones, yes? Is this whole article based off that one Truth Social post? Man, that sucks. Uh, Here is the news media covering how he posted photos of him in the motorcade on their way to the New York office for arrangement. Again, they covered every moment, every second, every tiny
Trump just
second.
posted this video of him traveling in his motorcade on his, as it was remarked on Twitter, Rich Man's Perp Walk. Writing, quote, "If you are doing poorly, as so many of you are, do not send anything. If you're doing well, send your contribution to DonaldJTrump.com." Trump, claims to be a billionaire. He's now using his arrest to raise funds.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, coming off.
He's actually raised $9 million. $9 million in funds through this whole process, through this whole ordeal that he's been going through over the last week. This, though, is probably my favorite Truth Social post. So this right here is Donald Trump with a baseball bat next to the DA, the district attorney, which helped make the decision to go forward with Donald Trump's indictment. He's holding a baseball bat as if to bash in the head of Alvin Bragg. Now, I don't think I need to go into too much detail to explain why Donald Trump, who has a history of having supporters who can, let's say, get a little over-enthusiastic with violence at times, with the use of force, why him posting an image of him with a baseball bat about to bash in the head of Alvin Bragg, the district attorney charging him, is not a good idea. This is the type of stuff that's going to lead the lunatics to send anthrax to Alvin Bragg. In fact, somebody already tried to, and that was stopped. It was found out to not be a poisonous substance, but it was a threatening letter attached with some chemicals, as if they were meaning to harm Alvin Bragg. So there's people who are very, very openly, very honestly trying to, not honestly, but very open and honest about their type of behavior, trying to intimidate Alvin Bragg into dropping the charges with violence. And so him holding the baseball bat as if he's about to bash in his head probably is not the smartest move. His lawyers, though, were completely oblivious to this, and they kind of just denied that Donald Trump even made this post in the first place.
The district attorney next.
The president not use language. He requested that everybody involved refrain from using language that's inappropriate. And by the way, that includes the witnesses for the people who are talking just as much.
It also includes the former president swinging a baseball bat at the head of the Manhattan DA.
Well, I don't know where you got that, because if
that was a tweet sent out by the former president.
No, it wasn't. And first of all, that picture was not him swinging a baseball bat. I mean, if you want to distort the facts, go right ahead. I won't address that. Yes, it is. He wasn't swinging a baseball bat at anyone's head. That was a picture of him showing off an American-made bat. Someone else put a picture of the district attorney next to him, and in an article posted that. That's not his article. That's not his photos.
Not using language that incites.
Guys, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the insufficiency of this case.
Okay, so as for the claim that that post was edited and they put Alvin Bragg in there after the fact, that's just a lie. I don't even know where he gets that from. That's just a lie. I tried to look where like for anything that would substantiate that claim on the internet, couldn't find a dime. But my favorite is, and look, somebody just brought it up in site chat, Captain TBT, that guy has an impossible job. He does. And so at some deep part of my soul, I have some sympathy for him. But the angle, oh, I love it. No. It isn't Donald Trump threatening him to bash his head in. That isn't that at all. He was just showing off an American-made bat that when Donald Trump posted, just so happened to pick out of all the photos of Donald Trump existing online. If you Google Donald Trump, okay, that photo isn't the first thing that comes up. Of all the pictures that he used the one where he's brandishing something that could easily be construed as a weapon, while he's next to the person who's charging him with a crime that he's very angry about. And this comes a week after he said, if he's arrested, death and destruction shall descend upon the country. Okay, yeah, no, totally. He just wanted to show off how American-made it was, even though he didn't say a thing about that in the post. Again, this guy has an impossible job. I understand it's his job, but God, man, I'm happy I'm not him. I will say, though, this wasn't just a Donald Trump event. This became a kind of a cooperative effort of Copium, a cooperative effort of defending the president of the former president of the United States. Here's one example. Marjorie Taylor Greene went to New York City, even though, she's from Georgia. I guess, she kind of sees it as like, this might not be my community, but I'm here to support the former president, yada, yada. And the community of New York did not welcome her very fondly at all.
You animal, you! Go back to the farm, you animal! They're looking for you at the sanctuary! You filthy animal! You QAnon lunatic! Hit her with the space lasers! Blast her with the fucking space lasers! Get the fuck out of New York, you racist, sick, filthy, infected animal! Get the fuck out of here!
That's Michael Rappaport, by the way. I know many of you probably recognize the voice, and you can also see his TikTok account in the corner. He was getting interviewed a lot that day. She did not get a warm welcome. The only time where I saw that she actually could get an interview done was when she was in the car on the way to the building, because that was the only time when people weren't yelling at her for even being at the event. She was not the only person, though, who made a surprise visit. George Santos made a surprise visit to the event as well. Why? I have no idea.
This is breaking news.
Ground zero.
George, can you talk to us about your volleyball? George, it's your buddy.
Hey, how's the growing team?
Have you recently gone over? Why are you here? Just tell us why you felt it was important to be here in person. Are you bringing legitimacy to this process finally? Just tell us why you felt it was important.
You know what I like about this? You can see he's facing this way. And for those of you who don't know, that's Jordan Klepper of The Daily Show. He's the guy who specializes in making right-wingers look like idiots. That's like literally his job. Is he hosts a show every few weeks where he just says, here's a bunch of dumb right-wingers. And the right-wingers come on. They're like, durr, I'm right-wing, right? That's literally his job. I will be fair. They don't make it that hard for him. You can see, as he's asking a question, he turns, he was facing the left. Jordan Klepper's on the left, so he turns to the right. He ignores Jordan Klepper. He turns to the right.
Have you recently gone over? Why are you here? Just tell us why you felt it was important to be here in person.
So Jordan Klepper goes to the right.
Are you bringing legitimacy to this process finally? Just tell us why.
And now George Santos is turning to the left. He is avoiding Jordan Klepper. He's dodging and weaving, pivoting and moving, doing whatever he can to make sure he doesn't answer a single question by the guy whose job it is to make him look like an idiot. Problem for him, though, George Santos, liar in chief, probably most scandal-ridden congressman to ever be elected and have these many scandals in his first term. Sucks for him, though. Jordan Klepper was already on the case and released a whole segment about not only just the reaction, but like half the segment is just George Santos dodging, asking questions, which honestly looks worse than if he was to just answer the question, which it wasn't even a ridiculous question. The first question was like, why, basically amounted to, why are you here? Which it felt like he couldn't answer it.
There are a lot of crazy characters down there.
Let's skip. We don't need all this intro. We don't need all this filler.
I went downtown to watch Trump's historic arrest and the surrounding media circus. But I was curious how hometown boy Donald Trump would be greeted by regular New Yorkers.
Donald Trump, like, Jesus Christ, what more is there to say?
Trump's a dick!
Yes, he is!
Trump's a dick!
Yes, he is! Donald Trump, lock him up, nail the mother and get his...
Another real diehard MAGA folk.
Nail him, dude. I'm telling you, man. I got that. If they dropped Trump in that crowd, they dropped him in that crowd. Just like you hear like a buzzing sound. He turned back around. It was like a swarm of piranhas. There's nothing left but his overly large tie and a MAGA hat.
But also appearing were some of the most respected and articulate members of the Republican Party.
Marjorie, are you afraid Trump will be mistreated by the gazpacho police?
Yes, the rising stars of the GOP came out in force.
If anybody can get Donald Trump off today, it's America's lead defense attorney, George Santos, who went to Harvard Law and Stanford Law.
Are you finally bringing legitimacy to this process? That's why we didn't do video. Are you finally bringing legitimacy to the process, George?
George,
can you talk to us about your volleyball career? We need to know. Have you recently done a Talk to me about your law degrees. Which law degrees have you gotten that you are bringing here to this?
I showed up.
As first president of the United States, do you feel that you can actually handle the jurisprudence that's going on? George, talk to me about your volleyball.
Doesn't really feel. I don't even really know what his idea was. I guess his idea was like, hey, I'm from New York, so I got to come out here, and this is terrible persecution. But the thing is with George Santos, it feels like by associating George Santos with any event, your event now becomes more ridiculous and silly. Like, I could actually see myself, if I was in Congress, proposing legislation, and George Santos says, I support it, and me just saying, please do not. Please do not, because if somebody comes out and says George Santos supports this bill, I feel like it could probably push more votes away than the vote it earns by just having George Santos support the bill. Because he has become such a toxic character, and his name is so synonymous with being slimy and lying, that people would say, wait, why does he support it? Now I'm suspicious of it. And honestly, if somebody told me that George Santos was in support of a bill, that would make me more suspicious of the bill. That's just how much he's brought down his reputation in the 1 year since he's been in office. My goodness. I will say, though, as all of this stuff was developing, as all these stories were coming out, as all the people were reacting, as all the people were mauling, all the counter-protest events were happening, something else was developing. And some of you might remember the story a little bit from, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago. I've talked about it. I talked about how Donald Trump, during the collapse of his regime, I guess we can call it, whatever you want to call it, while he was moving out of office, while he was getting pushed out of office after he lost the election, there was an executive order written up, and we didn't know who wrote it up or who gave the order to write it up or where exactly it manifested from. But there was an executive order written up by somebody, we had assumed it was Rudy Giuliani, in order to seize voting machines using federal troops, using the National Guard, using American soldiers. They were going to seize the voting machines. This is not only an extreme overreach, but it seemed like the first step in what would be considered a coup of what was the democratic will of the people, overthrowing that process, putting a big rock in the gears that turn our democracy forward and install our new people in power once an election has been held. That's what it felt like. And we didn't know exactly where it originated from, but now we know that this order, that this command, this operation, this suggestion originated with Donald Trump.
I'm going to bring you now some exclusive new CNN reporting about one of the federal investigations. CNN is now learning for the first time what top Trump officials have told a federal grand jury about an effort by the then president to seize voting machines as part of his scheme to steal the 2020 election. CNN national security reporter Zach Cohen here to join the conversation. So lay this out. You have exclusive reporting. Ken Cuccinelli, top official at the Department of Homeland Security. Chad Wolf, who I believe at the time was his boss at the Department of Homeland Security, testifying to a federal grand jury about being involved in meetings where Trump wants to seize voting machines. What do we know?
John, that's right. Multiple top national security officials that served in the Trump administration have gone into the grand jury and testified in recent months and talked a lot about how they had conversations directly with Trump himself and said, look, DHS, the military, they don't have the authority to seize voting machines. And they had to repeat that message not just to Trump, but to his lawyers, to various allies within the administration and within the White House. But the fact that Trump himself was asking whether or not the federal government could seize voting machines is really one of the first details that we're learning about this closed-door testimony in the Jack Smith January 6th federal investigation. Now, this is all happening in secret. Witnesses go in and they testify in private, but our sources are telling us a little bit and giving us a little window into what prosecutors are asking in front of this grand jury.
And there are two tracks to the Jack Smith investigation. One is about the classified documents. This is about trying to steal the election, trying to overturn the election, obstruct the government, transfer of power and peace like that. What do we know about sort of the context in that?
Absolutely. And so, we know the witnesses have gone in, Cuccinelli and Chad Wolf have gone in and talked about how they told Trump and Rudy Giuliani, who was obviously Trump's lawyer at the time, that DHS couldn't seize voting machines. But then Robert O'Brien, who was Trump's national security advisor at the time, has gone in and talked to prosecutors about a meeting that took place days after Cuccinelli and Wolf warned Trump, where the idea of seizing voting machines came up again, and Trump didn't shoot it down. So we're getting a little bit of a sense of what prosecutors are asking.
Oh, that's a big deal, gentlemen.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put a pin in this at the end of today's video to kind of more express the fact that Trump is in so much legal trouble, and that I could not do a 1 hour or 2 hour video to go through all of Trump's legal trouble. I would have to probably be even longer in order to go through it all. And so the fact that he was caught on this, and this is the hook that got into him, really, again, this is the idea I want to reinforce, just feels like the tax fraud for Al Capone. This guy's committed tons of crimes. There's tons of investigations into him, but this is the stuff they have the most concrete proof of. That is what it feels like. I'm not saying that there's never been anybody else who has held high office in the United States that got away with crimes, and this in no way is saying that everybody else that has not been charged is innocent, because I saw a lot of people trying to say, okay, if Trump's getting charged, why not charge Bill Clinton? If Bill Clinton committed a crime while in office and the statute of limitations has not been exceeded, then you can charge him. Why would I be opposed to that? I don't want the justice system, the system of law and order, to only apply to Republicans. I don't want the law and order system to just apply to people who don't have over $1 million to $2 million in wealth to their name. I don't want it to just apply to people who cannot afford a lawyer. I want it to apply to everyone. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Obama, George Bush, Jeb Bush, Ron DeSantis, everyone. Everyone. And I'm hoping that the case that's being brought forward is going to be strong enough to hold Donald Trump to account. That's what I'm hoping for, because there's so much he could have been held to account for, and I'm hoping that Alvin Bragg knows what he's doing and he's not going to bungle this up. If he does, this is the one thing that really could rejuvenate Trump's campaign heading into a general election, if he can legitimately come out and say, I was being persecuted. Look at this, it's all trumped up. Because let's say it isn't even persecution, but they press this and they don't get him on it, and he gets away with pleading not guilty and he's found not guilty. Even in that scenario, even if there was enough evidence to warrant a trial, he will still say, look at that, I got not guilty plea, I was being persecuted, but I won, I fought and I won, I'm a fighter. That'll rejuvenate his campaign. So I hope Alvin Bragg really thought about what he was doing before he went forward with this case, because we're going to be seeing this case play out over the next year through the campaign season. This campaign is going to be tinged with the history being made here of him being the first president being arrested and then charged with a crime. He isn't the first president to be arrested, by the way. I've heard some people say he's the first president to be arrested. That's not true. First president to be arrested was actually Ulysses S. Grant for speeding in 1872. Not for speeding on a car, mind you, for speeding on a horse. He was then taken to jail. He then paid a $20 fine and was then let go. Not really exactly comparable, but Donald Trump is making a different kind of history here. He's definitely beat out Ulysses S. Grant for the crime counter. Was it a DUI? Driving while impaired? No, it would be RUI, riding while impaired, wouldn't it? It'd be riding while impaired.